Welcome to another episode of Mexican in the Kitchen. Today I have another video recipe, just as usual, some Mexican recipe, beautiful twist for the usual roasted pork loin in the oven. You know, I'm going to make this with some adobo, which is a lovely sauce. You'll really like it. But I also want to talk to you about these Armeator thermometers. I don't know if you've seen my videos before. I got sent this one a few months back, maybe a year, and I made some pibil chicken, which was quite nice. And I was testing these. First time, I don't use like thermometers very often. I have one very old one, but I really enjoyed this. This is now the new version. This is the Armeator 1, Armeator A1. In this one, they improved a few things. This one uses batteries, which I don't love because I don't always have batteries lying around. This one, I charged it 15 minutes. It has like some USB port here. 15 minutes, then it was ready to go. The probe charged quite quickly as well. And they added this tiny screen in here, which is quite nice because when I'm cooking, sometimes you have, your hands dirty. I don't want to be grabbing my phone all the time, so I can have my phone on the side. But if you don't want to use that, you can also check the information in here. I thought it was quite handy, especially because it has the magnet. You can just stick to the grill or to the fridge where I usually have them. Just check the information. Quite smart idea. But let's go to the recipe. In this one now you can see the temperature of the oven or the grill, which I thought was quite smart. I might have messed up because this temperature was not quite right. I think after reading a bit about it, I might have not placed my thermometer the best way, but you'll see how it works, or my oven is not the best. But let's see how it goes. I hope you enjoyed the video. Press like, subscribe, activate the bell, all those kind of things. Try it at home, and let's go to the video. I will start by preparing my adobo. Adobo is a sauce. It's usually made with some tomato, some chilies. This is one of those very traditional recipes that people might do differently depending on the region, depending on how your mom and grandma used to make it, or depending on what ingredients you have available. Here I have 2 guajillos, 2 pasillas, 2 ancho chilies. A lot of people believe that Mexican food is really spicy, but in this case these chilies are just giving some color, giving some flavor, and they're not really that spicy. If you cannot find these dried chilies, you might find them as well in the condiment section as powder. And in this case, you can use 1 teaspoon for every chili. In this case, I'm using 2 of each. What I will do is open them, remove all the seeds, set them aside, and then we can continue. I will also prepare 2 garlic cloves and 1 medium-sized onion. The garlic cloves I just peel. The onion I will cut into fourths. You can also chop it if you want or dice it. But in this case, I'll just cut it in fourths and just try to split it in the layers. Then we can set it aside and we can continue. Here I have a pan. I have it on a 7 out of 9, so medium-high fire. I added a bit of olive oil, and I'm going to also add my garlic and onion in there. I will let them be for a while. I will keep an eye on them. I'll keep moving them around from time to time. I want the onion to become translucent, and I want the garlic to become this golden brown color, really nice. After a while, you will notice things are changing. Garlic looks like this on one side. I flip them. Onions are starting to become a bit more soft. Colors are changing. This is exactly what we want. This is a really good timing for us to drop our chilies in. We want to mix everything together. We don't want to have them there for too long. We want to toast them a bit. You will notice they might burn quite quickly, so you just want to have them there for a minute or two. Be really quick. You will notice how the oil starts changing color. That's all the flavors, all the colors from these chilies coming out. That's exactly what we want. As I said before, tomato and chili is the base for this dish. But I live in Finland. At this time of the year, tomatoes are not the greatest. So I'm using crushed tomatoes. If you want to use fresh tomatoes, I would use maybe 4 or 5 tomatoes, cut them in quarters with the onion and add them at that point. In this case, I'm using 320 grams of crushed tomatoes. I am also adding some water. I'm first rinsing the crushed tomato container, then adding it into the mix. It will be about 350 milliliters. After mixing everything, I can start with the seasoning, and I'm going to start with 3 pieces of clove. I'm adding 3 pieces of bay leaf, 4 or 5 pieces of allspice. I added 6 here because these were quite tiny. 1 piece of a cinnamon stick. If you have powder, you can just add a dash of it. Then I'm going to add some oregano, depends on how much you like it. I would say between half a teaspoon and 1 teaspoon. I'm going to use a tiny bit of cumin. I don't want to overdo it because it's quite strong. I will also add some thyme. I am using some chicken stock. I am using powder, but this is the equivalent of 1 cube. I will also add some salt. And of course, you have to be careful when you use salt and chicken stock. In Mexico, chicken stock is really salty, so it's easy to overdo it. Here in Europe, it's not so much, so you can do it a bit more confidently. Depending on where you live, you probably know which chicken stock you're using better. Right now, we are done with the seasoning. I'm going to mix everything. I'm going to let it boil for about 5-10 minutes, keeping an eye on it, mixing from time to time. We want to give it that time so that the chilies get softer, and then we can blend everything. After about 10 minutes, our chili should be quite soft, and we can move on to the blender. We're just going to carefully take the mix, throw it in there, and just blend everything together. Boiling these chilies helps us make them softer and easier to blend, but anyway, they are a bit hard to blend. So I would recommend that if you give it 30 seconds, 1 minute, and you think this might be ready, just maybe give it double the amount of time or 1 or 2 more minutes, just to be sure this is blended as smoothly as possible. After blending, I'm going back to the stove. I am using the same pan, I just gave it a rinse, and I'm going to strain my sauce. I know I told you I am blending these for quite long, but still, chilies are a bit rough to blend, and there will always be leftovers. So if you don't blend your sauce, you might have a bit of a different texture. Some people like it, but personally, I think the pieces of the chilies that might be left are a bit like when you eat popcorn and you get a piece in between the teeth. They can become quite annoying. So I'd rather strain everything, of course, completely up to you. This adobo is quite thick, so it might look like it's not going through, but just take a spoon, keep moving things around, and you will notice it slowly starts going through, and you will get there eventually. At the end, this is what I have left. This is just a paste of everything that the blender couldn't take care of. So I'm just going to put this away. We don't want this to go into our sauce because we want the sauce to be smooth. This is a good spot for us to try our adobo, to rectify anything that it needs. If it needs more salt, if it needs more acidity, you could add a splash of apple vinegar if you wish. This is the perfect texture I was looking for. If yours is a bit more liquid, I would recommend you to leave it on the fire, keep mixing a bit, and just reduce it until you have the right texture. Now we want to marinate the meat. In this case, you don't need an oven container. In my case, I am using one because I want to take it straight from the fridge. Just rest it for a while and then throw it into the oven without having to change it. But again, this is completely up to you. I'm going to start by adding a layer of the adobo. Then I'm going to put my meat and throw the rest of the sauce on top. I am using 800 grams of pork loin. If you want to use some other cut, you can use it. The sauce will be the same. But I personally like this a lot because this is what we would use in Mexico. Some people might want to sear the meat before. Personally, I think it will give quite nice flavor. But this is the traditional way. This is the way my grandma, for example, would do it. Once we are done adding the adobo, we can cover our meat. You can just close the container. You can add some plastic wrap or some aluminum foil. I'm taking this to the fridge and I will leave it there overnight. The next day, this is how our meat looks like. As you can see, the sauce has split a bit. You can see the water, but you can see the thick sauce covering still the meat. I took the meat out of the fridge around the same time when I put my oven on, so it has some time to rest, not to be completely cold from the fridge. Here we have two options. Either we cook it as it is, we just cover it and throw it into the oven, or you set it on a tray where all the liquid will drip and you will get two different results. The second one I would use if I want to make sandwiches out of it. But the first one is if you prefer to serve it with maybe some mashed potatoes, you want all the juices to stay in there. I am going with the first option because when the adobo mixes with the meat and its juices, it produces a very nice sauce, and I like serving that with some mashed potatoes. Right now I am covering my tray with some aluminum foil. I just want to have it as tight as possible because I'm still going to add the thermometer. Right now I'm going to stick the thermometer into the meat, and for that it's quite simple. You just take the probe out of the case and it will turn on automatically. It will immediately start showing the reading, and now we can stick this into the pork. I don't know if you can tell in the video, but this probe has a line. That line has to be completely inside of the meat and you have to stick it into the thickest part. The reason why I am doing this through the aluminum foil is because this is a wireless thermometer, So if you do it inside the aluminum, you might lose the signal or the signal might not be the best. So it's always better to avoid wrapping these with aluminum foil. Once the probe is in, I can open my Armeator app. I can click on the start, select pork, and select well done. In this case, you can choose whatever you prefer. This is 71 degrees Celsius, about 159 Fahrenheit. At this point, it will give you some guidance on how to use the probe properly. If you know what you're doing, you can tell it not to show this again. Now we are all set. It's showing you on the screen the readings of the thermometer. It will let you know when the temperature is reached, so we can now take these to the oven. The oven is set at 180 degrees Celsius, about 356 Fahrenheit. As you can see, we have two different temperatures. We have the meat internal temperature, and then we have the environment one. I'm not really sure why the temperature got stuck in 100 when the oven was on 180. I have to check if my oven is the problem, or maybe it was just too close to the aluminum foil. This is the kind of alarm you will get once the meat is ready, and now we can take it out of the oven and we are set. At this point, I will just remove the thermometer and we can uncover our meat. Let's see how it goes. This is how our pork loin looks now. The beautiful bright red color comes from guajillo. This has a very nice flavor. It has a bit of chili, has a tomato flavor, and then the aftertaste has a bit of a kick because of the chilies, but also has a bit of the sweetness with the cinnamon, the clove. It's a really beautiful sauce. The meat is actually quite tender. I'm just trying not to make a mess while cutting this. All the juices from the meat mixing with the adobo makes a beautiful sauce. I really like these. You can serve these with rice, with some mashed potatoes, make tacos out of it, sandwiches, whatever you want. I hope you like it. Press like, subscribe, activate the bell, share it with your friends, try it at home, all those kind of things, and see you in the next one.